Welcome to Centennial Conversations, where we celebrate 100 years of Rangers hockey with some of the greats who worn the blue shirt. Today I'm joined by two goaltenders who both left their mark on this franchise. Mike Richter and Steve Valiquette. Mike is one of the most iconic Rangers of all time, a Stanley Cup champion, an Olympian, and a true competitor who defined an era. Steve followed in those footsteps, carving out his own legacy in goal and continuing to make an impact through his work, breaking down the game and teaching the next generation. We'll talk about the position we all love, what it takes to play in New York, and the goaltending legacy that defines the Rangers. Welcome, Mike Richter and Steve Valiquette. Thanks for being here, boys. I want to start with a statement. The goaltending position is the most transformed position in sports over the last 50 years. True or false?
True.
Back it up.
Look at a goaltender from the 70s and watch a modern day goaltender on video, and that would argue that point 1,000%.
I'm going to back that up too. I think Mark Messier was saying this honestly about 15 years ago. He said he's never seen anything like it. You know, I play men's league. I come down on a high school guy and I just dump it in the corner, get off. They're bigger, they're more athletic, then they have technique, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
In a way that the average goalie didn't. We were self-taught. There was technique, but the shooters are so good that if there wasn't that evolution of the goaltending position, it would be mayhem out there. And they really have. They've evolved and then some.
There's so much information out there right now.
Yeah.
You know, the kids that start playing the position, they can get so much feedback from videos. And let's go back to when you guys started. You know,
He says with a smile.
I mean, I remember there was something about the equipment. I love that. There was something about the position. It was intriguing.
Yeah.
You didn't realize that, okay, there's a lot of pressure here. No, I didn't think about that. I thought about, that's awesome. You compete and try to stop a puck using that type of equipment. That's why I started, I think. What do you remember from your start?
Two things I remember. You get to play all the time. And I couldn't stand going in and playing and sitting on the bench and worrying about offside and when's your shift and all that. You just get going in the puck and tweet, the whistle blowing off. Like, come on, now just getting something going. As a goalie, and when you're younger, you don't have three deep in most of those little teams.
Sure.
I had two older brothers. One played goalie, so A, I was just going to be kind of copying my older brother. But B, even my oldest brother that played in men's league, he's 8 years older than I. He'd say, hey, man, we need a goalie. You want to play? And I'd take a nap. I'd go out at 11:30 to a beer league at 12 years old because they need a goalie. So you could always play.
Yeah.
That was one. And the other thing is, hands down, the funnest thing you ever done. Right? I played all sports as a kid, but we all started. The equipment and the fun, just going around and that feeling of someone's got an open net and you get a glove on it or whatever it is. Great. I mean, all sports are cool when you're a kid, but that's such a unique position. You're the only guy there, so it feels like, I don't know, you're working on something really unique each time you're out there. And I had more fun than any other sport I played.
I wish I could say that I chose it. It didn't. It chose me because I couldn't make the team as a forward. And that was it.
I think that's a long way of saying the same thing.
So Jack Valiquette is my father's cousin. He was a first-round pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's a centerman. My grandfather was a centerman. He scouted for the Toronto Maple Leafs. My father was a centerman. I received phone calls from my grandfather when he heard that I was trying it at age 12, and he was saying, a Valiquette doesn't play net. And that was just the way it was. Now, I don't make the team single A Bolton Bruins the first year I go out as a forward. The next year, I come back as a goalie, and they say to me, weren't you a goalie weren't you a forward last year? And I said, yeah, I was. Well, we need a centerman. So I got rid of my goalie equipment, went back out as a centerman, and they cut me as a centerman after cutting me as a goalie in the same tryout. It wasn't until my third year did I make single A as a goalie.
We need to cut a centerman. Could you come here?
Yeah, it was like, and that was my introduction to hockey. It was, if you really love this enough, find a position to play and just put me in the lineup.
Fair enough.
Idols, who did you look up to? I remember Patrick Roy, Dominik Hasek.
Yeah.
But that was probably a little later as a teenager.
Yeah.
As a kid, Peter Lindmark was the best goalie at the time back in Sweden. But for you guys, when you started, who were you looking up to?
My first one was funny because it was Darren Pang.
You did not look up to
I
Darren.
know. Darren Pang was playing goal in the NHL, 5'8".
Oh, that's amazing.
Right? Now, I was 12. So that made sense to me. I was starting to get used to the position, and I was looking at him and saying to myself, well, he's about the same height as me. I got to figure out what he's doing out there.
Yeah.
He had a great glove.
Great glove.
And then after that, it became Patrick Waugh. I lived, or stayed rather, at Francois Allaire's house for 3 days. Benoit Allaire's brother.
Unreal.
And I learned a lot about goaltending, and he was coaching Patrick Waugh at the time.
Unreal.
So I fell into that, and then after that, Sean Burke. But,
Oh, wow.
you know, and I
Yeah.
know you were Perron, right?
Bernie Perron, yeah. The rest of his soul, he just passed in Philadelphia, but he was just cool on and off the ice. And talk about technique. You know, that was the old stand-up goaltender. He was taught by Jacques Plante. He had it down perfectly. He won both Stanley Cup championships with a shutout. And, you know, he had this French accent, cool guy. Everybody in Philadelphia, if you were a goalie, you became Bernie Perron. Cool mask, iconic. And truly, to be able to watch him was an amazing kind of mentor. And I ended up going to his hockey camp and all that kind of stuff, then knowing him later in life. But that was the guy I looked up to the most.
We touched on, you know, the equipment. One of the reasons why probably a lot of kids get intrigued by the position. The masks.
Yeah.
You know, as a goalie, you have an opportunity to kind of express yourself a little bit in terms of the design. I'm sure you didn't have masks starting.
Yeah.
As a
No.
kid, I remember my
with the
first.
cage.
I think I had my first mask when I was 15,
Yeah.
14, 15. But again, the different designs we were able to have throughout our careers. Can you talk a little bit about that process of? I mean, you had an iconic
Sure.
Statue of Liberty on the top here. Can you talk about how that came about? And,
Well, I'm old enough where it was an evolution where, honestly, as a little guy, you know, 8, 9 years old, you had that form-fitted mask. And all it was just, I mean, it was just something hard to be pushed against your face.
You had the fiberglass one right against your face.
And plastic in the beginning, then fiberglass. And then, you know, the cages came out, which were safer because it was away from your face and your eyes in particular. So by the time I evolved and the position evolved into having the current cage setup, nobody was really thinking too much about the graphics. It happened on the old mask, if you remember some of those cool graphics, and then it started happening. And I can remember it was almost this pressure. All right, I'm changing my lid. What's iconic about New York? And there's almost too many things. There's the Twin Towers back when they were up. There's subways, and people are like, what do you associate with it? And Big Apple's one, so we were playing around with that. And it was actually the graphic designer came out of New Jersey, and he said, what about the Statue of Liberty? I'm like, God, great move. And I wouldn't have expected him to do it so large on the top like that. I thought it was going to be a statue on the side, but he put this big thing there and Rangers down the side and done. I loved it. And that became our third jerseys. So, yeah, that was a lot.
you had that design for years, right?
Never changed it. And I
changed
love
it.
the way, I remember when you guys played at Yankee Stadium, you guys could just dial in different things, pads and all that.
Yeah.
But it took so long back then you were just used to that mindset of the equipment that you set up, work in, and use, you marry. And I never changed it. I kind of like that. It just, you put it in, set it and forget it.
And before I ask you, Steve, it's just funny, you know, up at the training center, we have a lot of the old equipment laying around, and I remember your pads were up there.
Yeah.
And there were so many times I walked by talking to Cass about, so Ricky, what did you do with these pads? And for those who don't know, I mean, it's changed so much, the equipment, the weight and the shape of the pad and the things you used to do with the pad.
16 inches in the bottom.
May have been wider than they were tall.
Seriously. And ours are 11.
Yeah.
Well, they kept making them smaller.
Yeah.
The whole idea, like when they came out and said goalies' equipment is there to save them from being hurt, not block the puck. And so then you started getting the pads smaller. If you remember, Garth had the thing up here. Beezer's mask at one point, they said it was too wide because they thought he flared it out and was using it. I don't think that was the case as something to save the puck. But I think it was, to your point earlier, goalies were evolving and getting so much better, and the equipment was getting stronger. They're saying, hey, man, guys can't score, and we need goals.
Yeah.
So let's shave this stuff down. 11 inches wide is very
Do you know what I think really changed the most was the pads on the inner knee.
100%.
To be able to butterfly the stacks. Because when I was 14, 15,
For sure.
I had some serious knee issues using the butterfly because there was no pad there. It would just be smacking the ice.
Yeah.
And I had to get fluid taken off of my knee for that because it was just a strap.
Well, before they even had the pads there, you used to do that kick, that kind of beautiful kick out like that, and you're exposing the side of your leg, and there wasn't pads there.
Okay, so that's the protection, but then we're also talking the balance.
The balance.
That was a huge change when they made a solid knee piece on the inside.
Yep.
Because when you're down on a butterfly, you can kind of stabilize yourself sitting up, right? So that was a big change.
And your shoulders are closer to the crossbar.
Yep.
So you're actually bigger in your butterfly too.
Yours were.
We were cheating a little bit too. You had the wide pads, we had the blocks.
What was cool though, and I think it might have been Patrick Waugh, he had sewn some blocks onto the inside of his equipment.
Yes.
But I mean, that was what was really compelling about the position. It is equipment, it is the mental aspect of it, it's certainly the physical aspect of it. All those things was this alchemy of how do you get to be as good as you can possibly be. And Cass was amazing. He had never played goal. And I remember him coming in and I had hurt my hand on a shot and part of my catching glove had broken. And he's like, well, just tell me what you want to do. And you could talk to this guy. He was like a baker. What is it that you want me to make, And he would just manufacture this crap in the little room in the back. He'd come out like one of Santa's elves, like, here. I'm like, how did you come up with this? Because you still have to move, but you have to have protection. And it can't be, you don't want it even to be visual to the other team because then you know you have an injury.
Yep.
And he was supreme at that. So I think that tinkering with the equipment was one of the things, like you're saying, Vladislav Tretiak said that. That's what got him to play goal.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys just love that kind of aspect of the sport. There's so many dimensions.
Your mask,
Oh, my
Steve?
mask.
I remember you had Spider-Man on
That's
your
right. So what happened before that season was Dave Art, who used to do our masks back then, I was approached because Marvel had a contract with Dave Art, and they wanted me to do something with Spider-Man. Now, I wasn't a comic book guy per se, but I just started sketching it, and I came up with those eyes on top of the helmet. I sent it to Dave Art. The biggest mistake I made was I signed a contract with Marvel for $30,000 for that idea.
That doesn't
But
sound
no, it's a bad idea because it's still the highest grossing youth helmet today. It is.
No way.
Yes.
And you got no revenue.
No revenue.
You need an agent.
I know. Well, I thought I was smarter than my agent.
Is the Spider-Man, I mean, there's some kind of, the net behind you. Is that kind of the thing we're talking about, or is it just straight up?
No, it was just straight up because they went to Rick DiPietro and they asked him to use Captain America on his helmet. He did something with that. I did the Spider-Man idea. It was Marvel.
Really
just
cool.
working with Dave Art.
That makes sense. Talking about the evolution of the position, then we get into coaching and goalie coaches. It started my career, there was no really goalie coaches around. Maybe once a month you talk to someone. But then we were lucky enough to have Benoit Allaire throughout our careers here in New York.
Yeah.
Ricky, for you, at the highest level, how common was it to have full-time goalie coaches?
It was a little more rare back then.
Yeah.
And part of it was you were, in a sense, you were your goalie coach, which is a great thing because everybody has to be that. I mean, when you have a good game. Benoit's awesome. But in your heart whether you were focused on that or not. So you have to self-correct for a lot, and that's what we did. But really, I came here, Eddie Jockman was the original goalie coach, and that was cool. I mean, I had read his life story, and he is an awesome guy, but anybody who has a bit more experience than you is value. It's a second set of eyes going, hey, you think you were set on that shot, or you were giving up a little bit on that, rebound, or whatever it was.
I want to ask you, did you talk more about the technical side of things or more on the mental side of things? I guess because that's a huge upside to have someone that actually played in the league.
I think the big thing is it's technical until you run into trouble, and then it's always mental. Hey, you're trying too hard. You lost 2 in a row, but you played well. Stick to your knitting, But I remember the first practice. He'd sit in the corner and it's like, that was a good goal. That was long side. Oh, short side. No, nope, not good. And he kept giving you compliments when the goal was scored. I'm like, isn't the goal to actually save the puck? But he was very positive, and he just said, it's okay. A forward's going to make a good shot once in a while. Just lower the odds of that happening. Don't make it easy on these guys. And that's coming from a guy like that was pretty helpful because you kind of simplified things. Like, every once in a while they are going to beat you, so you don't lose your marbles, which I did as a kid. You're competitive and you don't want to ever give up a shot in practice or a game, but I think he had that kind of effect. And I think back then too, they would pair older goalies with younger goalies. When I came here, John Van Beesbroek was here. He was established. He was very, very helpful. And you are competing, so it's a little bit of an odd thing. And he had to be very gracious about that. Bob Froese was on his way out. He was kind of in his final few years. He's like, let me tell you, I can help you in this way and that way, but mostly you're stabilizing mentally because it's an experienced position. And so when you can come to every game after playing great or playing poorly and come with your best effort, you start to add value to the team, and that's what those guys help.
So you think you relied more on your goalie partner maybe back then?
I think you did, and I was lucky. I had great partners the whole time I was here. When we won the Cup, Glennie Healy was here, and he really saw the game well. He thought the game really well. The way we talk about you, about Shesterkin, about these top players have to think it no matter what the position. But he was good. He's like, this guy's a shooter. Like, you would really rely on them. Who's this kid they brought up from the minors? Oh, my cousin played with him. He's a pure shooter. He's never going to pass. Good. You get that in the back of your mind. Of course, he'd never take responsibility if he got past the puck. But Glenn was great because he'd go down the lineup. He's selfish. This guy can't score. He shouldn't be in the league. I'm like, dude, we're playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. They just won the Cup last year.
That sounds like Heels. He's a character.
He's awesome.
And Valley, working with Benny, obviously personally, incredible experience and the support I got from him. What can you tell the viewers about Benny and the impact he had on your career?
Oh, I'm not sitting with you fine gentlemen if it's not for Benny Allaire. Now, I met him a year before you because it was during the lockout. Now, he was so unselfish. He could have not showed up in Hartford at all that lockout year, 04-05. He stayed for the entire year. 30 minutes before practice, 45 minutes after practice. The first conversation I remember, he pulled out a puck and he said, "Vali, what is this?" And I was like, "Benny, it's a puck." He goes, "No, Vali, it is a question and you must provide the answer." And I'm just sitting there like, okay. And he said,
maybe I should have been a forward.
Yeah, he goes, "The answer for you is positioning. You have to correct where you're standing." And he gave me 10 VHS tapes from Sean Burke, who he had in Phoenix at the time.
He was awesome.
And he brought him to Vezina level. And he said, "This is the biggest goalie in the NHL. Nobody is your size." And that was true at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, "Find out where positionally he is in the net, on entries, off the face-off, in zone on the PK." I just copied Sean Burke.
That's awesome.
And that was just off of video. And one other thing I remember from Benny, he put it the right way. He would take his marker and he would put it on the ice in front of the crease and he would write, "Become a master." And so every day you were just working towards something, master level. And I felt like I bought into that, where I had a goal every day at practice to master stick angles and then master low blocker and work your way through the game that way.
And for kids out there watching, I always keep telling them during my goalie camp, and you work with a lot of young goalies now, this position, it's all about repetition.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire career, you worked on pretty much the same things.
Oh, yeah.
And you just had to do it over and over and over. To your point, you want to master it. You want to do it so fast and without thinking. Yeah. So sometimes you think you have to be so smart, come up with new drills. No, not really. So you kept working the same type of drills for 20 years.
This is where I'm laughing, okay? So I'm retired at this point. I came to your practice, and I see Henrik out there with Benny doing the same drills. And I run into him after, and I was like, "Hank, same drills? It's been like 18 years. He goes, "No, that's like, you gave me that speech. You were like, no, this is why we're doing it this way." It's that important, the fundamentals.
It really are.
I actually think that is one of the whole reasons you play. You were never done improving.
Yeah.
I think if you can take that attitude as a forward too, but goalies are kind of on your own little island. And so you have that game within a game. Yeah, I want to beat Pittsburgh or Philly tomorrow, wherever it is. But you also want to master the position, be as good as you can be. Every game you want to have a shutout. Okay, if they score in the first shot, what do you do then? Shut out from that point on. And that's that repetition and that kind of, you're in your own little mind space, and I think it's there's no end to the amount of challenge that you have there. Yeah. And one quick thing on Benny, from a distance, I didn't know him, but just a really gracious man and a great guy. And I remember Shesterkin came in, and I was like, "Oh my God, is he ever good?" And I'm like, "How do you go from Hank to him? That's amazing." I said, "You're doing something right." He goes, "You know how you become a great goalie coach? Get great goalies." I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be pretty good equation."
Great scouting.
Well, speaking of great goalies, you were fortunate to have Eddie Giacomin as a coach, but let's talk about Eddie for a little bit. The importance, the role he played for this franchise. How old were you when he was at his peak?
Oh, I remember watching him in Philadelphia. So I'm supporting the Flyers. I grew up in Philly. So there you are watching the home team and kept running into the Rangers, and there's this Eddie Giacomin. It was clear the Flyers were kind of this team that was taking the next step, but there seemed to be one guy standing between them and that final step. And you couldn't predict a game because Eddie was that good. And I remember just being a kid in high school or something like that, reading, I think it was called Four Great Goalies, and Eddie was one of them. And it was easy to hate New York. I mean, if you're not from here, you hate the Blueshirts, right? Mm-hmm. But then you read about him and just his life story and how great he was as an athlete. He's a great baseball player, and he loved the sport, but he ended up having more success in hockey. He stayed with it. Huh. But, oh, man, he had a horrific burn from a fire when he was a kid and had to, his first training camp, he couldn't even tell the coaching staff because they would have sent him home, so he had to get there early and wrap himself in gauze. I mean, these are crazy stories, but there's, again, totally self-reliant. And an amazing career, you know, a really, not just a Hall of Fame career, but he had changed the game, the way he handled the puck and whatnot. But then even as an older guy, just an alumni, how he, I think, just held himself with a lot of grace. And I just found him to be a great friend to know and a great kind of part of the fabric of the whole Ranger organization.
Yeah, it was really great. He came around for a few moments every year. Had an opportunity to talk to him, and
he was a great fan. Like, he loved watching the game as it evolved, and he recognized, holy smokes, these guys are good.
We talked about, you know, the alumni, legendary players, coaches.
Yeah.
Emil Francis. Yeah. What can you tell us about him and his role and impact on Rangers hockey?
Huge name. You don't quite know who he is as a person. You just know he's this iconic figure, not just in the New York Rangers, but across hockey. And he had more stories than you could shake a stick at. Hilarious stories, you know. Little guy, just so passionate about the game and such a fan. Like, if you didn't know his history, you just say, that's a super fan. He just wants you to do better, and he's always supportive. Yeah. This is a guy that had lived every aspect of Ranger history and had been a supreme leader. And, you know, when his playing days were over, when his coaching days were over, he was really important for the hockey community, you know, for the alums. I think when you have a guy of that stature and he is committed to seeing other people's success, it really makes a difference, and that's what Emil was to me.
So that leads me to the next question. You said fan, you know, being a fan of the game. Yeah. Today, we see a lot of goaltenders. They serve as coaches or they work on TV as analysts, you know. But we try, you know. Why do you think we see so many goalies, you know, still in the game, helping analyze the game? I think I know. I want to hear what you guys think.
I think that when I wasn't playing, I was the most focused person in the building, other than the guys that were on the ice. And I remember talking to you after games. Sometimes you just needed to talk through a couple of the goals, and I'd say, Hank, it should have been 5 against tonight. You gave up 3. That's a great game. Don't forget about the 2-on-1 where the guy passed it across. And now I was always breaking down scoring chances. And I felt like, I thought at the time the most important part of hockey was having more scoring chances than your opponent. And I was always trying to rationalize, what is a scoring chance? Yeah. Because we didn't have any information on that. But I think the way that we, from our perspective, all the way up the ice, from what we get to see, and when we're not playing, how we could get thrown in at any moment, so we have to stay focused. I really think I found myself always thinking about the game, and it hasn't stopped. Getting the video from Benny and then learning how to edit video helped me a lot, because I had to edit it myself. I went to West Farms Mall in Hartford, got a video converter that took VHS into my laptop, and then that was another way to look at the game. Now I was watching my own video, and I think those two things probably stand out as to why I got into post-career.
Yeah, I think you're always analyzing as a goalie. You have to. You've never played a perfect game. You know, even on the shutouts, there's ones that you weren't set properly, or maybe you hit somebody's skate in front and you got away with a few. So you're kind of thinking, how do I get better? What do I need to do? But, you know, by virtue of the fact that you're part of this team, you're not on an island alone, and maybe you're emotionally, but you're such a, you know, how your team's playing in front of you is going to determine your success a bunch. And the communication, you know, Brad Park used to come down and be like, you know, what are you saying to Leachy on the 2-on-1s, you know? And the great players communicate a lot, and it's got to be that you're, you know, a 6-man unit in a way.
Yeah.
You know, in order to really have success. It's great to have a great game, but how do you focus? I always remember listening to your post-game, and you analyzed the game well, and you saw it well, and I really respect that about you and Glennie Healy. I went to him with a lot of advice, because he's like, you know, they're dumping to chase teams, so don't worry about the rush, but they're going to be coming from the corners. And you think about it, that's so
Great insight.
Yeah, that's so the blocker and the goalie and all that stuff that I'm kind of focused on. It's like, what's the system we're dealing with here? And I think, you almost have to be that. Plus, we all know goalies are so damn smart. You have to have them on TV.
I think that we've always had to read off of our teammates to know what their options are, the opponent's options, and I think that's another way to look at it too.
Yeah, and when you break it down really, in a typical game, you might make 30 saves.
Yep.
But how many reads are you making every 20 seconds throughout a game? So the reads and to anticipate and to analyze it. To your point, that's what you do as a goalie.
Yeah.
So it feels pretty natural, I think, for a lot of goalies and the next step to kind of, again, take a back seat and have a pretty good view and understanding of the game because, again, that's what we did.
And it's not just X's and O's. You know when your team's on their toes or when they're on their heels or maybe they're a little tired or confused on a system. So you get that kind of that feel from the locker room on out, whether you're playing or not. You know what the kind of the vibe is going on. So it's you have a really unique perspective playing and not playing like that. Crucial.
For you guys as starters, it must have been different when you weren't playing. You're so used to playing all the games. I mean, you were playing 70 games most seasons. Your seasons, you had some really big seasons of 60, 70 games. So you're not playing, you're probably sitting there in the locker room like, oh, well, so this is what goes on here. Right?
Introducing yourself to the guys.
Because you're so locked in when you're playing and then not playing, you get to really observe what everyone's body language is like and their personal
how
behavior.
How they prepare and all that. Because you're in your own little bubble.
Yeah, 100%. I want to talk about breakaways and shootouts. You know, one of your most iconic saves against Brewery in the playoffs '94. You were really good at breakaways and penalty shots, but you played in an era where we didn't have
there wasn't
penalty shots after the game if it was a tie game. Take us through your approach if you face a breakaway or a penalty shot.
Sure.
And why you were so good. I mean, I look at tapes and remember watching when you played, your footwork was so good.
Well, I'm not a big goalie. When I played, I wasn't considered tiny. By today's standards, I sure was. But, you'd have to move. And when I came into the league, it was a little bit more of an angle situation. You weren't going down much. The 5-hole was really vulnerable because you stood up more. But that means you had to get laterally really quick. And I did work on that as a kid because I spent a lot of time just in Philadelphia. It wasn't, it's not Toronto. You don't have that many people to play with all the time. So after practice, I would just take scores of shots. And honest to God, I was playing with Kovalev, and he was so good on breakaways. I'm like, if I can save this guy, everybody's easy, I mean, he could just go laterally so well, but the skating is the key. And we used to try to come out, meet them, and then pull back and keep that same kind of critical distance the whole way. Because if they're going faster than you are, you're vulnerable for them to go around you if you're out too far. If you're sitting back and they're coming in, they see all kinds of net. So you have to come out, give them no net, but stay with them so they keep seeing no net. That's when it gets scary because if they start making moves the way they do much better now, you're going to open up.
Pavel Bure getting set. Everyone on their feet at Pacific Coliseum. Here comes Bure against Mike Richter. Saved by Richter! What a save by Mike Richter to stop Pavel Bure!
And I want to ask you because I felt like it changed over time. I entered league in 05. Early on in the penalty shots, everybody went straight down.
Yes.
And after a couple of years, suddenly guys started going to the boards and they come back in.
That's
So the way,
that is the flip side.
When you played, it was pretty much straight on, right?
I think two things. First of all, because these breakaways happen at the end of the game, it's important. It's another point. So guys really are working on that in practice, not just like, hey, it happens twice a year, there's a penalty shot or something like that. You're going to be asked to do that. And so guys like Patrick Kane is slowing down almost to a crawl, 55 movements, and then they're roofing it. So it's gotten more difficult for the goaltenders. Of course, the goaltenders move so well. Who doesn't move pretty well out there now? Everybody does, and they fill the net well. But I do think that just the how big that moment is can be a game kind of momentum changer. So I always felt, though, breakaways were so much harder than a penalty shot. Penalty shot's going, all right, Hank's going to take a penalty shot on you. You good? You good? You good? Okay, sweet, go. And you're set up. Where it used to be frightening is a guy like Lemieux would be skating. He had that long stride, and it didn't look like he was even doing anything, but he was cruising. And Tom Barrasso or anybody would just turn around and gun that thing down the ice, and he'd catch a thing on stride. And before you could even think that you might be want to know, he was upon you. And that's when, if you're not really thinking the game, as you're saying, right, it looks like an innocent play, but someone's going to be sprung. And a Bure would do that. Connor McDavid does it with that speed. You have to be aware who's on the ice and be ready for that. But I think the penalty shots are slightly easier because you get a chance to set up.
Yeah. I mean, that's the key, right? To set your feet.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, when you get out and you stop, the question is, when do I start backing up and how fast?
Yeah.
But that can only happen if you get the right distance and set your feet.
If you're late on that, you're playing catch up the whole way,
Yes.
and it's going to go badly.
The Rangers and goaltenders, if you look at the history, it's always had this pretty unique relationship. And, you know, the support they've given a lot of goaltenders throughout the years. Can we talk a little bit about that and your own experience with the Garden Faithful? And
Mine's easy to remember because it only happened twice, where they chanted my name. You know, like Valley, and I was like, I get goosebumps. But it was once when we were 0-0, third period, had to kill a penalty late to get to overtime. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, they're chanting my name right now. I got to get focused, right? But the energy look, I had heard them do that for you how many times? And, you know, I just thought it was a big deal that I'll never forget. It was once against Toronto and it was once against Anaheim. Oh, wow. And I'll never forget it. And, you know, I sometimes say to friends and family, I wish everybody could have a Garden moment. Yeah. You know, and that's how I remember it. It was just a Garden moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's why I love any alumni appearance, to get back on the ice, to skate with fans, look up at the ceiling, and pinch myself.
Stajan against Steve Valiquette. Save! In on Valiquette. Save, and the Rangers win! Steve Valiquette shuts out the Toronto Maple Leafs. Rangers win in a shootout 1-0.
It's an incredible place, right? I mean, we've all been through it, and I think they've just been kind of fortunate to have a couple great goalies early in their existence, and that clued them into that. And I can remember doing a talk radio when I was first drafted, and, you know, someone calls from Queens and like, well, your save percentage is, you know, .892, and I'm like, he's rattling off things that I didn't know about myself, you know, and so these fans are into it and they know it. And it's gratifying to have those guys support you like that. So, yeah, I think there just always has been that from JD on through.
Right. Eddie, right? Eddie started with Eddie.
Eddie. It's good to have two syllables.
Sure.
Easy to do it, Henrik. We'll make it up. Yeah. But, you know, no, it's an amazing place to play. As you've said so many times, it's a crazy place to play. It's so enjoyable. Everybody loves coming here and playing. You know, on the away teams, but to be, you know, wearing that uniform and then they're signaling you out with your name is a really special thing.
Yeah, and I think as a goalie, you know, the reason why you love the position, we started the interview about the pressure, not realizing part of the package being a goaltender, there's a lot of pressure.
Sure. Yeah.
But over time, you realize that's a huge part of it. Oh, yeah. And the fact that you embrace it, and to play in a place like New York with so many passionate fans, you know it means so much to a lot of people. Absolutely. Just adds to the pressure. Yeah. But if you have guys to really embrace that, it becomes such a cool place to play. You know,
feeling of pride. And
yes, absolutely.
Such an energy to use.
It is.
It really is. Centennial year, 100 years of Rangers hockey. And I've asked all the guests we had on the show about the impact the Rangers had on you as a player, person. Can you take us through what you feel, not only your own Rangers experience, but also what you think about the 100 years and this centennial year?
Yeah, you know, I'll just go back to my first game because it was after the game was over that I realized how much it made people happy. You know, that we won. Yeah. Because if you remember, Henrik, it was the 06-07 season where we were kind of up against it, and we had a home game against St. Louis. We had to win to just get rolling again. And I got scored on twice in the first period, and I remember getting booed off. We all got booed off leaving the ice. And I remember getting into the locker room, taking my stuff off, putting some water in my face, looking at the mirror and saying, we are not going down like this. Like just, you know, this is not going to happen. And we went out and won that game in a shootout. And it changed everything for us at the time. But the stress that I think I put my wife through, and no, I mean it, because like you're trying to establish a career, but at the same time, she lives in Connecticut. She's from Connecticut. They're all Ranger fans, all of her family members. It was a really important win. You know?
I just think, you know, the 100 years is one. It really becomes a family. There's plenty of people in the league that would not want to come to New York. They're scared, they're going to get mugged.
Yeah.
Then they come here and realize how passionate the fans are, how incredibly gracious the people are here. It's an amazing place to live. It's an amazing place to work. I mean, you know New York from around the world, and it is a real privilege to be able to come here. And to have the fans be that into it, and it matters so much to them, I think you realize there is that kind of, it sounds corny and all that, but there is a family. They get it, they understand it, they live and die with you. They're up and down.
Yeah.
You know, you lose more games often than you win. Like there's things you wish you'd done better, and you got to get through that. And these people are up and down that roller coaster with you. You think about what you get. It's, you know, good years, even good years, they're grinds, and you got to figure it out. And they come right along that ride with you, and they're pushing some of the ways and pulling some of the ways to help you. I remember when we won the cup, you know, it was the first year you could walk away and finally say, I did what we were, you know, set out to do.
Wow.
And Mess took the trophy and he just went over to the fans. And I thought it was the best gesture ever because, you know, we're all hugging it and this and that, me, I, this. There's a lot of people supporting you. And Mess went right over and boom, and people were touching it. And that's what's great about hockey is it's so passionate and whatnot. And the Ranger fans, I don't think there's, you know, we've said it enough, but to play here is such a privilege because these fans, they'll go through a wall for you, and they are living and up and down the way we are. And I think that's an amazing thing to experience. So.
And I've said this a bunch throughout this year. You know, as a player, I felt the history was so important for the Rangers.
Yeah.
Original six, celebrating 100 years. But now as an alumni, I feel like I sense it even more.
I think so, yeah. I totally agree.
Do you feel that as well after you retired, just the understanding of the history of this franchise and what it means?
I thought it was really neat as soon as we all retired, we get phone calls from folks around the organization saying, look, we're going to do this event, come on back. And I'm like, wow, you know,
Awesome.
I wasn't sure, you know, and there's so much pride with the logo for us. And we love the history because it's a great history. It's an original six team. It's the most amazing jersey in the league. The arena, the people, like we're, quite frankly, we're spoiled, but we are. And it's the greatest city in the world on top of it all. So it's a big deal for us.
But I think that's a big deal is you don't know it as an 18-year-old coming in or a 20-year-old, whatever it is, and you learn it as you go. And I do have to say that's one thing that is absolutely, you look at the old alum and you always look to those guys and, you know, there's a big difference between someone who's a player and someone who's not. You're in this other world. But man, you join that and you go, wow, what a privilege it was to be part of the fabric of this organization. Really a cool thing.
Yeah, we're spoiled.
Well, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And let's keep celebrating.
Yeah,
That's
for
right.
sure.
Let's
Thanks,
do it.
Hank. It
Thanks,
was
Hank.
awesome. Really fun to listen.
Great job,
guys.
Hank.
Oh, thank you.
As always.
Steve.
And Rick.